2023, year where I watched about 250 discs and tried to whittle it down to 10. Didn't succeed. Going to get it down to 15, but I'm going to include box sets this year as a way of kind of giving a reason for the 15. And while can't watch everything that came out this year, I've got a pretty good spread of stuff that I really enjoyed this year. And here's 15 recommendations of stuff that I really enjoyed, or what I consider to be the best or my favourite Blu-ray releases of the year. 2023 been a bit of a strange year because I actually expect to see a lot of harmony amongst a lot of lists. I think there's a couple of lots of great stuff by lots of great labels, but I think there's a couple of releases that I think genuinely are a bit stand above the rest of it. So we'll see if my list agrees with other people. That certainly wasn't the intention, as you know. I tend to be a bit left field of some people anyway. But let's see what I've got. Now, starting with number 15, a lot of things in consideration for this, but I went for what I consider to be the film with the best martial arts this year. I went through a large Kung Fu stage this year. I'm going to talk about Magic Crystal from 88 Films, that has some of the best artwork, but also has some of the best Kung Fu. Cynthia Rothrock, Andrew Lau, and Richard Norton as this rather stupid, like almost like a family Kung Fu film. Whereas there's in Greece, they find a magic crystal. The people want the magic crystal. It goes to the hands of a young boy, and it almost has this almost ET-like feel to it. But on top of it has some just absolutely terrifically choreographed Kung Fu the whole way through it. And while it's plenty silly, I mean, it's a Kung Fu movie from the 80s. It's by virtue plenty silly. I just think there's an awful lot of fun to be had with Magic Crystal. And like I say, the artwork for these releases is something else. I think Sean Longmore is the one that did this, but absolutely terrific. Number 14, a new label, Radiance, came on the scene this year, and like I pretty much enjoyed everything that I've watched from Radiance this year. They have a number of releases on my list here. They very much mesh with me, who I am as a film fan at the moment, and the types of films that I want to see. But the one that I'm going to highlight is, at 14, is The Iron Prefect, starring Giuliano Gemma. Turns out, Italian cinema I just sort of can't get enough of. This one tells the story of a man who decides to take on the mob and take down the mafia, sort of telling the true life story, glamorizing a person who probably wasn't worth all glamorizing. A lot of the extras go into that as well, but what at the heart of it, I think what you have is just one of the most inspiring pieces of casting that you've ever seen. Giuliano Gemma I have seen as pretty much a big rugged piece of meat in a lot of films like Day of Anger. He's the pretty boy, all the rest of it, and yet he transformed himself into this authoritarian person that was believable in taking on the mob and being hard and firm where he needed to and winning over the people, etc. I think it's an absolutely terrific film, and one that tells a really great story alongside having these great performances. And while Burt Lancaster, I think, was the person that they first wanted to do it, I think they would have missed a trick, because Gemma has, if nothing else, and always did have this incredible presence on screen. And the Iron Prefect, terrific film. The release is absolutely terrific as well. I think one of the standout things that Radiance does is really envelop and think about what would make a good, or what should be a good special feature or booklet story within here. And what isn't covered by a special feature is in the booklet in some way. Iron Prefect, absolutely fantastic. 13, another new label to the UK. Released quite a lot of stuff this year, but a lot of it direct. The Spooner Archive came, and the one that I want to highlight, if anybody's been watching the channel this year, will know that I loved Gold Diggers of 33. I mean, musical theatre is always something that I will enjoy, and musicals translated on stage will go well, and it doesn't go any better than a Busby Berkeley showstopper of a film, which Gold Diggers in 1933 is. Tells the story of a group of women who just want to make it in show business. They just want to have their chance to be on stage, and they opportune upon this by virtue of a composer who lives down the street for them, and also a guy who wants to finance and put this all together. It's all very whimsical. It turns into a bit of a love story across class divide, etc., and then ends with an absolute showstopper of a Busby Berkeley routine. There's a couple that go in through the film before it, but I think the one at the end elevates this film into something completely else. It's absolutely terrific, and Gold Diggers of 1933 is my number 13. At 12, a documentary. I mean, unbelievable, from Canadian International Pictures. This is 270 Years of Resistance, the story of Kanesatake. A standoff that was caused basically by the white landowners basically wanting more land for their 9-hole golf course, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back and created a standoff around Kanasatake and around the settlement that is Kanasatake in a world that is pre-mobile phones, and that reporters lived and told the story from within these encampments and kind of going against what people wanted the story to be told in order to control the message. It's an absolutely brilliant documentary, really powerful, and one that I think is really impactful on me, especially when you consider some of the world events that happened over territory, etc. this year. I think it has even greater resonance, and it's an absolute terrific release as well. I mean, it's got a great commentary, it has great archival special features, and talks about people from the time, and then also backs it up with a really terrific booklet as well. Kanasatake, 207 Years of Resistance is my number 12. Number 11, Criterion, I believe, are quite a popular label, and a film that I watched this year that really connected with me. It's Dry Longzhou by Colin Smith. And I think part of the reason this really impacted so much is I also watched Menace to Society this year, also on Criterion, but not a release from this year. And both films tell the story of what they consider to be an endangered species, which is the young black man. Menace to Society tells it from a perspective of like the violence. It's incredibly graphic in how it tells that story. It's an absolutely brilliant film. But Dry Longzhou tells it from the other perspective and looks at a student who's studying photography and wants to represent these lives and the tragic loss of these lives and the beauty that are around these lives in another way. And for a film that, upon release, never really picked up publication or publishing to be widely seen, and is now seen through the Criterion Collection, I think we have like a touching, kind of engaging film that tells, like I say, of a part of life that is often dramatised in a very violent or dark sense, and in this case embraces the people that are around there and explores that through friendships, and also around how family dynamics kind of aren't perfect and people aren't perfect, and just a really soft, deft touch of a film. And Dry Longzhou, I thought, was absolutely terrific. Number 11? 10? 10? 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 10 is a film from Second Run. I maybe haven't seen as many I've seen a fair amount of Second Run, but certainly back catalogue kind of stuff, but this year's releases. But one that absolutely stood out to me was The Cassandra Cat by Wojciech Jaśny. It's a surrealist Czechoslovakian film that tells the story of... Well, it tells the story of a lot of things. It's basically a school setting, but there is a cat in it, and a cat has sunglasses. And this cat has sunglasses, gets paraded around by taken through town to town, and when the cat takes off his sunglasses, he's able to reveal people for what they are inside by showing them his colours. So people who are red are lovers, are good people, and people that are yellow and purple and stuff are cheaters and liars and all of this kind of stuff. And it's one, the surrealistic playful nature of that, because a lot of stories told through child's eyes, and so that very fits in with that. But also the adults don't like this light being shown on the poor sides or the poor traits, etc. It's an absolutely brilliant examination of kind of small town society, of how people respect and look up to adults, but often adults let people down, and also, like I say, the world through the eyes of a child, and through people that are maybe maligned in society for being childlike and close to children, and how they have a playful nature, but actually they have an awful lot to say. The Cassandra Cat is just a lovely, lovely film, a real winner. Good booklet as well as usual, and it also has a short film on here as well, as well as the projection booth audio commentary, which are always very good. Second Run, just find these films and put them out, and I just sometimes just wrapped in joy with how much I enjoy some of these films. But I think this is a terrific release. Next up is a box set, and box sets, they fall into two camps for me. So you can have a box set that's just a collection of films within a kind of theme, so like the noir box sets or the western box sets. But what the really great box sets that I love are the things that are themed and tell the story of a time and a place, or a film movement or something like that. And this one definitely does that. It is the Enter the Video Store, Our Video, Empire Video box set. Has the 5 films of Dungeon Master, Dolls, Cellar Dweller, Arena, and Robot Jocks. I think all celebrate kind of low budget sci-fi genre filmmaking in a lot of ways. They're very reminiscent of the time and the place, but the box set also explores the people and the characters that were involved in making these. How some of them went on to greater things. How some of them used nothing to make cinema greatness in a lot of ways. I think for those of us that like genre filmmaking, there's something really fantastic to embrace and love about something like dolls. You know, taking a creepy idea of like ceramic dolls, obviously easy to do as a horror, but to do it so effectively and again through the eyes of a child. Dungeon Master, I think, is the only one that didn't really work for me, mainly because it didn't have the same creative narrative going through it, insofar as different directors made different skits and parts of it, and some of them are very good and some of them are not. But Robot Jocks is great, Arena's great, and Cellar Dweller, I think, specifically great using the cinema story, and just a brilliant box set. I'm not sure about these slipcover things. I'm kind of in two minds whether to throw it away, but the actual box itself is terrific. And in Arrow style, the booklet kind of does one essay per film, as well as looking at Charles Band, etc., as the overall creative person on top. And it's an absolutely brilliant box set, and one that I devoured. And I always think the hallmark of a good box set is one that propels you through it. I want another one in that series. I want to tell me more about the story of or the people that were involved in making that brilliant box set from Arrow. Next up is another Criterion. This one is another female filmmaker. This one from 1979 is Chilly Scenes of Winter by Jo Macklin Silver. Chilly Scenes of Winter is a film that needed a reappreciation. It's a very kind of low-key look at kind of the imperfections of people in relationships and what they want and how they love people, but they can't get out of their own way in terms of their love for each other. And it's very much like it captures that feel of 1970s American cinema quite well, in terms of telling character stories and not kind of worrying about it being glitz and glamorous, just telling people and showing people who they are. It's a film I really connected with in much the same way as Dry Long, so it's kind of connecting with the kind of personal nature of the characters. Some really just terrific performances in here. John Hurt, etc., is in here as the central character, and a filmmaker and a sense of storytelling that I think when I see a disc like this and you see the extras and people talking about this and people going, I'm so glad we're talking about this, because this is a film that I held in high regard for many years, but nobody wanted to talk about, nobody wanted to discuss, and yet we have a celebration. And that's one of the things that I really love about Boutique Blu Ray, is that we get the opportunity to have a conversation about films that maybe nobody was talking about, nobody had seen. People see it for the first time and go, here, what about this film? Chilly Scenes of Winter, I loved dearly. At 7 is a 4K. Is this the first 4K? That is, actually. There you go. Well, no better film for it to be a 4K of, because this film was made for 4K. This is Arrow Video's Blood and Black Lace. Arrow Bava's prototypical giallo. That is just awash with style and colours and just incredibly inventive use of a lot of the tropes that are in giallo, but also elevated to another level, put on a 4K disc with the enhanced colours. It was a marriage made in heaven. A first time watching me of sorts, because I'd seen bits of it. Obviously, Blood and Black Lace has kind of been in every documentary about giallo, and a lot of it's been discussed to death, so I had seen a lot of the action set pieces, etc. before, but as a full watch, first time start to finish, loved it. Really one of the, like I say, prototypical giallos that I think of when people go, where do you start? You start with Blood and Black Lace, not only in terms of chronology, in terms of when those things were made, but also in terms of quality. And Blood and Black Lace, just a monstrously good release, transfer, film, and extras from Arrow. Number 6. Could have picked any of these. This one's from Indicator. Indicator did more 4Ks. This is Jean Roland, and I'm going to pick Shiver the Vampires because this was my favourite. The most wondrous mix of music, evocative imagery, eroticism, madcat genre storytelling, all things that I didn't know anything about before I came to watching a lot of these Roland films. I've come to really appreciate who Roland was as a filmmaker, imperfections and all, sometimes going too far, but always like this mishmash of ideas and celebration of genre filmmaking, and just fantastic. Shiva the Vampires is the best of them so far for me, but I have to say I've enjoyed pretty much all of them to varying degrees. All of them are interesting in their own ways. Some of them are brilliant, some of them are good, some of them kind of don't fit together quite so well, but I think the endeavour of doing so is where the real great celebration comes from. And like indicator, obviously the discs are stacked. Love the slimline cases, but I think it should be pointed out, I think the booklets and the stuff that accompanies each of these films is almost as necessary as watching the film itself. The interviews and the investigations of Roland as a filmmaker, of the people that sat in the outskirts of around it, kind of with the lack of money, about how, you know, he dipped into erotic cinema as well for a long while. The story of Jean Roland and the people around him is even more fascinating than his films, but having the films that kind of dot the way along the steps is really feels quite special, and long may these continue. I know we're going to continue to get more, and isn't the artwork just bloody brilliant? These original artwork pieces to be celebrated for sure. We're into the top 5, so 5 is another 4K. Jeez, we're getting such a roll with them. Celebration of 4K. If I was going to pick a top 4K release of the year, I mean, 1, this is it, and 2 would be from this company. This is Christophe Gans's Brotherhood of the Wolf from StudioCanal. StudioCanal, who I absolutely adored the fact that they went and embraced a lot of European cinema from the 90s, etc. We had City of Lost Children, we had Delicatessen, we had Brotherhood of the Wolf. They even did kind of offshoot stuff like Cutthroat Island, U571 this year, Pianist. Like, their output was amazing this year, but there was nothing quite like Brotherhood of the Wolf. Not only is it a really fun mishmash of genres of like kung fu and, you know, genre storytelling, period storytelling, telling the story of a wolf or a massive wolf beast that's kind of killing people, and people come in and are sent to hunt it and take it down, but all set within this kind of French aristocracy, a very class-based system. And, you know, having Monica Bellucci in this central performance being captivating every time she goes on the screen. Vincent Cassel, every time he goes on screen, just completely like, oh, the camera can't stop looking at all of these people. Putting it all together in a release like this, 4-disc release, 3 Blu-rays, and UHD, and just the extras go on and on. It is just such a celebration of this film. I cannot think of a more definitive release for a film. Number 4, is this a box set? Is it not a box set? It's another Criterion release. This is Todd Browning's Sideshow Shockers. A release that was announced, people get very excited about, spreading in my spread of friends, especially Sam, get very excited about Freaks. And certainly I watched Freaks, and Freaks was excellent. Todd Browning is a filmmaker that Eureka and Master Sin have explored sometimes in the past, so not totally unknown, but this is very much this idea of celebrating the underclass, so the people that from the circuses and people that he recognised from growing up, etc. was just a wonderful celebration of that. And while Freaks was great, The Unknown and The Mystic were also fantastic. You can't help but watch The Mystic and not go, God, Nightmare Alley wasn't half inspired by this. You can't help by watching The Unknown and wondering at what a physical performer Lon Chaney was. And Freaks itself just being all of this just fabulous package of films set together. None of them too long, but all set in historical context. There's a great booklet in here that accompanies the stories of the films as well. I mean, just an absolute celebration of what's great about Boutique Blu Ray. I mean, the artwork's not bad either, as it turns out. And 3 great films, not one dud amongst them, and a great exploration of early, you know, American filmmaking that was risky. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It kind of ruined Todd Browning's career for a large part of it, because these are the kind of stories that he was compelled to tell, and an absolute celebration. Freaks, great. Number 4. Number 3, another box set. And not a particularly tough box set to put in my top 3. This is Cosa Nostra, the 3 films with Franco Nero and Damiani. Yes, I got that the right way around, I believe. That's amazing. So, Day of the Owl, Case is Closed, Forget It, and How to Kill a Judge. All 3 films are within the kind of realm of social conscious filmmaking. Damiani wanted to make political points in some of these. Some people would criticise even How to Kill a Judge for not going too far by kind of wasting an opportunity. I think he makes the point without kind of overplaying it so much. Nero is great as the central character in all three, but all three films are just really great showcases for great storytelling of things that are wrong in society in a lot of ways. Day of the Owls got Lee J. Cobb as kind of a new guy in town taking on the mafia or taking on the establishment of crime within the area. I've got the second film with Cases Closed, Forget It. I have a man that's been put into prison who doesn't really belong in prison, and how horrified he is by the whole experience. And then How to Kill a Judge, about a filmmaker who makes a film about a corrupt judge, and that corrupt judge ends up getting killed, and he becomes embroiled in the centre of all of that. The whole thing's brilliant, but even more than that, what a brilliant box set. I mean, when I talked about, you know, storytelling and box sets and how you can do things correctly and surround it, you know, documentaries on Damiani and about his social commentary and social consciousness filmmaking. You've Visual Essay by David Kearns, etc., that goes into his filmmaking in much the same way. We have lots of interviews with Frank O'Neill. I always feel it's such a treat when you get to hear somebody like Nero. I've seen him in a couple of releases this year. I love how available it is for Boutique Blu Ray. It's somebody that we should be really celebrating, and what an absolutely brilliant box set, and, you know, one that I can't wait to see supplemented. Like, I just had two, the most recent ones, The End of Civilization, the sci-fi, police sci-fi box set, and The World Noir, just coming before Christmas. Haven't got a chance to watch yet, but I expect really high things of that as well. Radiance, okay, I've picked out the Italian output that they have from the list, but I have pretty much enjoyed everything that they've put out this year, and look forward to seeing where they continue in the future. And now I'm on my top two. Second, well, I can't believe it's not number one for a start. I think this film, is somebody that I think is one of the most interesting filmmakers there is around today, and he has his own very singular style. I'm talking about Innismen by Mark Jenkin. I had watched Bait last year. I mean, I think Bait is brilliant in a lot of the same ways, but Innismen has then this mysterious element over the top of it. It's a film that at its core is about a woman isolated on an island and her reliving kind of past horrors through flashback and environmental storytelling, but it's also about an awful lot more. It's about living in isolation and dealing with grief and dealing with events that have happened to you by yourself, seeing former versions of, I mean, it's about everything, and it's all told in a sort of enigmatic Mark Jenkin kind of way, in having this overdubbed audio, which I can see not working for an awful lot of people, but it enables the filmmaker to be creative and kind of do exactly what they want with it, and also supplement it with this really great imagery. And one of the things that I really love about Jenkin is that he captures an awful lot of the parts of Britain, a lot of the things that British people who have been on holiday and done all that kind of thing, seen these places, really relish and recognise as being very British scenes in it, whereas other people from the rest of the world can maybe don't see that side of England or Ireland or Scotland or Wales. But we capture the place and kind of how historic and how lived in a lot of these places are that don't have anything in them. And between that and the disc itself and the interview, the conversations, the Kermode Jenkin commentaries are always wonderful. Like, it's such a conversation about the film, and it's a pains not to over-explain anything in the disc and in the film. I think it's a real celebration, and if you haven't seen Innismen, you should definitely go out and see if it's your thing, because if it is your thing, you'll love it, and if it's not your thing, you'll at least be able to tick the box and go, no, that wasn't for me. Thanks, Chris. What are you talking about? Which leaves me with the number one. What could it be? Oh, God. If I tell you that when I watched this, to say it blew my socks off was something else. So I've watched a lot of films that purport to be from this genre of film over the course of the year, and there is a certain predictable nature to an awful lot of it. So when you see something that isn't predictable and that sits very much outside a lot of that, it kind of makes you sit up and take notice. I was absolutely blown away by it, and very clearly my release of the year. It's Long Arm of the Law 1 and 2 from 88 Films. Like, unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, like, you could say a very violent Asian movie. There's been a lot of those over the years, but this one and both films are very much grounded in politics. Now, Michael Mack in the interviews after it swears that these weren't supposed to be political films; they were just sort of representations of what was happening in China, Hong Kong at the time. But the first one especially tells the story of people from mainland China that are going to Hong Kong to commit a crime. They're former, army war veterans, so are not unskilled, but they basically tell the story of how if they peel off this one job in Hong Kong, they will earn 100 times what they could earn their entire life if they stayed at home. This is the chance worth taking, and the whole thing is based in poverty and the idea that people want a better life for themselves and their family. And these are very much, while war veterans are family men, but they go away and are incredibly violent, and the whole thing feels very real. Supplement that with the idea that all but one of the actors in the first film pretty much is a guy they plucked off the street. It has a gritty look to it. They shot it on streets. They didn't get permits for an awful lot of it. It was very guerrilla filmmaking for a lot of it, and it screams off the screen. And Jesus, it's really, really impactful filmmaking. The second one, I don't think for me is as impactful a film, but is also a much better written story and maybe more entertaining. Elvis Troy, again, as this unknown, as the main central actor, became quite a big star afterwards. They plucked these guys off the street and then told them what to do. And you get, like I say, an authenticity about what it's like to try and make a life for yourself within what is already a crime-filled world, and trying, Long Arm of the Law 1 and 2, both great films. The extras in these, between the comedies, obviously Frank Jeng does comedies. You've got Michael Mack. The two interviews with Michael Mack, Johnny Mack's brother, are probably two of the best interviews I've heard all year, and how warts and all he tells about what they were trying to do, what they weren't trying to do, and the honesty. I'm sort of riveted by what he has to say. The screenwriter has a lot to say, and it's just the whole package is brilliant. And 88 have promised that if these say well, we'll get it 3 and 4. I very much hope we get 3 and 4, because 1 and 2 were my favourite releases of the year, and that is my top 15 for the year in terms of Blu-ray releases for this year. I'm going to do another couple of videos highlighting, work from companies that didn't make my 15, but I want to celebrate in terms of, okay, to make the 15, but the work that you did this year was some of the stuff that I loved. Thank you very much for your support this year. If you've been watching anything on the channel, both in terms of the podcast that I launched this year, Something Blue, and just general content on the channel, thank you to everybody that collaborates and leaves comments on my videos. It's greatly appreciated and makes me inspired to just go out and watch more bloody Blu-rays and more great films, and talk about and stretch my horizons in terms of what I want to watch. I hope you have a great 2024 plan for yourself, and I hope to speak to you over the course of it. Take care and all the best. Bye.